Hello everybody, we are back here, Farm Sim 15 on Gelvin Valley for yet another episode. Oh, I'm trying to think what episode number this is. I think we're up to 48, if I'm not mistaken. So, way more episodes than I ever thought would be made, but what can I say? There's still so much work to do in here. Let's get right to it. We're in the process of tilling the fall tillage of our fields. We've harvested, we picked up the straw. Now we're using a leased chisel plow, if you will, and we're ripping the fields up. So we'll continue at it, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get all of this done yet before the day is up. Maybe we will. Um, I guess we have at least almost 2 hours more until we're done leasing this particular chisel plow. You know, I think it lets you, that particular mod, which is pretty handy, it's so nice to be able to lease something for a fraction of the cost, that it would be to own it. And right now cash is in limited supply, so it's a handy mod to have on a map like this where it's so challenging, just to get up and running, get a farm going in here. So appreciate that mod a lot. But I really don't know if we happen to need this for more than the time allotment that we had. I think it'll just charge you more by the hour. I don't think it just takes it, it doesn't just disappear from behind the tractor. But it'll start to cost more, if you're not able to turn it back. So we're working on one of our newer fields, and as I recall, we have 37 and 8, and what was it, 1 and 2? 1 and, yeah, 1 and 2 also need to be done. Whoops, I'm not paying attention here. And then we're going to have some work rolling the fields, and as part of the rolling, it'll take care of all the small rocks. And look at that, there is a little tiny small rock right here you can barely see. Look at that. Yeah, the roller will take the ad and will pound it into the ground. Should have no problem with that one. But I just happen to see that. It'd be a booger if we had to pick all those up. So I'm going to be glad to use the roller to do that. The past couple of episodes, I've spoken at length kind of about modding and some of my experiences there. I don't know if any of that was helpful to anybody or not. But today, this particular day when this was recorded, I happened to be talking to my good friend Atomic67, and I don't know how we got on the topic of it. I'd have to go read our Discord conversation to see kind of how it got started. But we got on the topic of cops or police officers and the times we've had when we get pulled over for some traffic infraction or whatever. It's something that has happened to almost everybody, except and I don't know if that's something uniquely American. A long time ago when I was in high school, I remember going to a business luncheon of some kind, one of those where they had invited some students to come, I don't know, experience the real world a little bit. And I remember they had this guest speaker, and I believe he was from Australia. I could be mistaken on that. But one of the comments he made to the audience there, and this was, an organ of the U.S., is he says, "You all Americans have this expectation of a police officer stopping you on the road for something you did wrong, and maybe there's an argument, maybe there's a ticket, then there's a trial, or something to figure out how much of that ticket you need to pay, and so forth." I mean, anybody from America, we kind of know the drill. He says in Australia, maybe there's a police officer, maybe not. Maybe there's just a speed camera or one of those things that registers your speed and it takes a picture of your license or whatever. He says there is no arguing with the cop. They'll just mail you the ticket. and you got to go in and take care of it. And he says that's just the expectation, and everybody deals with it. And I still remember that as a kid, and I remember thinking, it's like, boy, that would sure, assuming everybody trusts the system, and I know the system many times makes mistakes, but wow, that would save a lot of cost, and maybe the police could focus on the really bad guys instead of some of their time being taken up in traffic infractions. So for the rest of that kind of thing, like I say, I don't know if it's similar in other nations or if it's mainly just America that gets to go through the enjoyable experience of visiting with a police officer when he or she stops you for doing something they think is against the law or wrong or whatever. We actually, in the office where I work, we have a gentleman who moonlights kind of as a police officer. I kind of think on a volunteer basis, helps out at the county, and he's had a lot of interesting stories too. But back to the conversation I was having with Roman, like I say, I don't know how it came up, but we were visiting about it. I got to thinking of all the times I've been stopped by a police officer, and I don't know, maybe other people are different. For me, it's a stressful experience. I don't want to disobey the law. And I for sure, don't find it enjoyable to sit and talk to a police officer um, when I know he's looking at me or he stopped me because he thinks I've, committed some offense. It's kind of a stressful thing, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's a lot of people that find that to be a less than pleasant interaction, one they wouldn't look forward to. And, I think for my wife, I don't think she's ever been stopped by a cop. Um, and when I say cop, I'm meaning police. I realize maybe I don't know if some areas of the world refer to him as a constable or some other term or whatever. It's a police officer, but an officer of the law. But I don't think my wife has ever been stopped. And I was just in reflecting on it this afternoon and kind of before I did this video here, I think I've counted up like 6 times where I've had some kind of interaction with the law. And I don't know, just for kicks, I was thinking maybe I could talk about that in this particular video. I don't know if I'll be able to get to them all in here. Time seems to fly. But some people seem to skate through life, unscathed. They never seem to get caught. Maybe I think that's what it is. They never get caught. And then there's others who seem to have a streak of bad luck and they get caught on everything and get the book thrown at them, even though there is scarcely any difference between that person and the other one who doesn't get caught. It's looking at the 6 times I've been stopped. I really can't complain. As a general rule, I do try to obey the traffic laws. I mean, that's just me. I think the laws are there for a reason. I don't try to just, deliberately be a lawbreaker. But I have to admit, and any of us I think would have to admit, if we got a ticket for every time we broke the law, even in the smallest way, there's not a one of us that wouldn't be bankrupt. Technically, if you go a single mile an hour over the speed limit, well, you're breaking the limit. And I know people push their luck, oh, I can go 5 over, I can go 10 over, whatever it is. And it's true. The police officers probably look the other way, if it's just a smidge over. Although it's probably going to depend on where that happens. If you do that in a school zone, I think they're going to be a whole lot more in tune and watching you, just depending on what the nature of the danger would be. But the very first time I was stopped for a traffic infraction, it was for speeding. Years ago, I worked in Portland, which is the largest city in the state where I live up north, and oh, it was one of those things, working late at night. That's still no excuse, but and I don't remember the time. All I know is it was dark out. I don't remember even the time of the year. Um, but I was just coming home in my little car, and there's this area called the Terwilliger Curves. It's an area coming out of Portland. It's on the interstate. I think the interstate highway, which is 4 lane. No, I think it's 6 lane, kind of in that area. So there's a lot of cars that can move through there. I think they have the speed right there. Oh, is that down to 50? Most of the interstate driving when you're not in the major cities, here in America is, 65, or depending on the state, you can get as high as 80. Well, in Oregon, the max generally is 65, kind of on the in the Willamette Valley, and but up in there in the Terwilliger curves, because there can tend to be a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. I think they do lower it to 50, and I was chopping through there in trying to come home. I was late getting home from work. I had to work late. Really wanted to get home, be with my wife and kids, and I was going over 60. I almost think I was going 68. So that would put me way more than 10 over the limit. Definitely breaking the limit for that particular area. 68 and a 50. And this particular guy, he was a motorcycle cop, and I never even seen him coming. I mean, he was just kind of sitting there, wide open. I was just doodling along, not minding anything, and all of a sudden, I saw him leave There was an off ramp, and he was just sitting there, and I saw him come after me, and I just knew. I had that sick feeling in my stomach. I'd never been stopped before, so I was scared, and so I got over as quickly as I could, and it was noisy on the interstate. That's something I learned. It was very hard to hear the officer when he was talking to me, and so I mean he was nice about it and everything. I mean, probably saw I was scared out of my wits, but he asked for things, and I know I'd been taught this in driver training or whatever, but it's like, I don't know. Sometimes you have to be nailed on something before it fully sinks in. He asked for license and registration. Um, well, I had my license, that was in my wallet, but I didn't have my registration. He asked for my insurance papers, and I didn't have that either. So like I say, he was really nice about it. He just told me all you need to do is go to this court. He told me where to go, and these are penalties that go away. He said you just have to show the paperwork, because I did have it. I just didn't have it in the car like a dummy. You're supposed to carry that in your glove compartment or wherever, and I just didn't have it. So that was kind of my first experience, and then I went to court, the following day to try to get it all taken care of. I don't remember how much the fine was. Um, but it's like, you resolve never again, will I get caught by the law and have to go through that embarrassment. And I think that's what some of it is. Even though at that time of day, all these cars going by, I didn't know a single person, but it's just I don't know, you call it the embarrassment and shame of sitting there and everybody sees you and you figure they're all laughing at you as they go by. Ha ha ha, there's someone who thought they could get away with something, and now they're getting their comeuppance or whatever. And well, I was speeding, I couldn't deny it. Um, and that was that. I mean, I was just getting my just due according to the law. That's kind of how law works. I mean, it's very cut and dry a lot of times on that kind of thing. So that was the first experience, and sadly wasn't to be the last. I mean, there was one other time, actually two other times I think I got hit for speeding. One of them was just a warning. Actually, both of them were just warnings. One happened when I was traveling with my family in Minnesota, I think. And that one there, I had a little bit of excuse. I didn't know what the law was, although they say, not knowing the law, ignorance of the law, they say is no excuse. But we were just coming out of a town. I didn't see any speed zone signs, or don't recall seeing any, so I think I started speeding up, and I may have been going 55. I had my whole family with me, and well, as it turns out, I think I was still in a speed zone. I don't even remember how much. It could have been 35, could have been 45, and I was going 55. I don't remember those details. What I do remember is there was a police officer who stopped me, the Minnesota County State Patrol, whatever it was. And I think when he noticed that we were from out of town. I think he had mercy on me, and he didn't. Because if a lot of these traffic infractions, you have to show up at the courthouse somewhere in person to deal with them, and it can be kind of a hassle to deal with it over mail, which I would have had to do, to deal with the ticket. So he just informed me of what the law was in the speed limit in that particular area. I apologized, and he let us go on our way. So, uh, Minnesota cops, you're good guys. Although I would have deserved a ticket there too, because well, I was speeding. That's what I was doing, even if I didn't fully know what the law was. The other time I got stopped for speeding, and it was just a warning. I think it was New Year's Day. Oh, this has been maybe 5, 6 years ago now, when all of our kids were still home. New Year's was it day? Maybe it was New Year's Eve, the night before. I can't remember. Either New Year's Day the night of, or New Year's Day itself the night of. We had been at a family gathering, and our family, we have a Suburban. That's kind of the family rig that we haul ourselves around in. We were driving home in it, and it was just on country roads. That's kind of where we live, out in the country. And the family we had been to was probably about 10 miles away, and it was really foggy that particular night. And coming off a stop sign, uh, well, before the stop sign, I was following somebody. I mean, everybody has a different tolerance, I think, when it's foggy outside. Obviously, if it's thick fog, a driver, for safety purposes, should go a little slower. Sometimes a lot slower, because you can't see and you never know what you're going to run into. But everybody's going to have a little bit different tolerance on that. And of course, the speed limit still is, kind of what it is. And so we were following behind this car, and they were just putzing. And I didn't feel, or I must have felt, that the fog wasn't thick enough to warrant as low a speed as they were going. So we kind of came up to a crossroads and stopped. There was a stop sign there. And the guy ahead of us, I was hoping he would turn, but of course he didn't. He kept going straight. We needed to go straight. So, coming off the stop sign, I made a decision. I just punched it to get around him as quick as I could. And I really don't know how fast I was going. But he was literally putzing. When I say putzing, I mean he probably was going 20, 25 miles an hour. We're talking really, really slow. And plus, he was coming off of a stop sign, and so he wasn't even hardly going that speed. And I just punched it, to coming up behind him to get around him and get on our way. Well, so I do that. I get out in the left lane and I pass him and go around him. And right as I do that, come in the opposite direction, still a ways off, was a set of lights. And I remember the thought kind of going through my mind, they're coming the opposite way. It's like, oh boy, I hope that isn't a police officer. Well, sure enough, it was. He was coming the opposite direction. He saw me go past this car. And so I kind of continued on my way. I sped up to, uh, I don't know, I don't think I went fully 55. Like I say, there still was a little bit of fog out, so I don't think I was at full speed. And I just continued on my way. It's because then, I noticed when I went by, oh, it's a police officer. And it's like, well, I wonder what he thought about what I just did. And as it turns out, he was not very impressed with what I just did, because he turned around in the road. I didn't see him do this because it kind of faded into the back. And he turned around, and it took him a little while, but he eventually caught up to me, and he pulled me over. And of course, it's late at night. I got my wife, my kids are all in there. I know my kids were really scared, and I didn't know what to. I mean, I was older by this time, and this had happened, a few times before, so I didn't have quite the anxiety, that I would have had the other times. But it's night, it's dark, and I gotta say, I have a healthy respect for officers of the law, police officers. They never know what kind of situation they're going to run into. when they come up to a car, especially at night. And and I know one thing, the gentleman that works for us, one of the things he advised people to do is, if you are stopped at night, maybe turn on your lights inside the car so the officer can see everything. Put your hands on the steering wheel, versus holding them at your side so he knows you're not holding a weapon or that kind of thing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen here in America where we have gun rights and the Constitution and that kind of thing. So I did that. Turned on the lights, put my hands on the steering wheel. The officer came to the window like they typically do, and now he told me that he had clocked me going 65 miles an hour, and he said, he's told me that's how fast I was going. He says that's a little fast for this time of night and these conditions, don't you think? you know, what are you going to say to that? I kind of have a personal policy. I don't want to sit there and argue with the guy. My wife and I were talking later. It's like, I don't think I was going anywhere near 65. I mean, I did punch it coming off of a stop sign or whatever, but I don't think I was anywhere close to 65. Maybe I hit 55, but honestly, I just didn't know. He said 65. Like I say, I didn't want to argue with the man. I have heard, and I don't know if I'm lucky and there's a police officer that would be listening to this. I have heard that in the fog, the readings of the radar that the police officers use don't read quite as well as they do, and sometimes not at all, um, like they do when it's broad daylight or there's no fog. There's something about the fog apparently I've heard that interferes with the reading. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe he was just saying that to see how I'd react. I have no idea. I didn't challenge him on it. Um, I forget what I even said. Um, but he looked in, he saw my hands there, he saw, I was a family man, had all the kids there, wife. Maybe he saw a terror stricken look on their faces. I don't know. Whatever it was, he took time to look up my driving record, and at that particular point in time, every previous infraction I'd ever committed driving a car had already dropped off my record. I'm not sure how long those are kept on there. Maybe if it's 7 years. And so he comes back and he says, just want to encourage you to drive a little bit slower in these conditions. He says, there's nothing on your driving record. And he says, and I don't want to be the one to put something there tonight for a mistake, or I forget how he worded it. So he let me go, with a simple warning. And and I don't know what attitude these guys have, when they make stops like this. I suppose if I would have had a bottle of whiskey in the front seat and I was drunk, uh, well, probably would have been a whole different story. Or if he had seen any alcohol, period, or if he had encountered uh, something other than just a family, if you will, with young children, maybe the situation would have been different. Uh, Maybe not. I don't know. I really have no idea. I was just grateful he let me off the hook kind of for the night so the family could go. And we all said a big whew, as heading out of there. And I don't know if I've learned any lessons from all that, but glad I didn't get a ticket. And shoot, for all I know, like it probably was after midnight. Um, it was celebrating New Year's. So for all I know, he didn't want to fuss with a ticket that time of day. Paperwork for him. Um, so who knows? But sometimes you get lucky. You get off with a warning, and that was one of my lucky times. But I have had a couple others um, that cost me some money. Well, I mean the speeding ticket that I had, that first one that I mentioned. I mean that cost me some money too. But some of them, I guess it's just being human. Anytime we get a ticket for some infraction or whatever, we start self justifying and say, well, at least it isn't something else, some other bad thing or whatever. And, the cop didn't consider this, that, and the other thing. All these extenuating circumstances, that we come up with in our minds that we think explains away whatever bad behavior we've done or what have you. Because, of course, I'm a good person, right? I don't deserve a fine. That other bad person over there, you stick it to them, but I'm a good person. That tends to be what we think. And so, and I'm freely willing to admit that. So some of these other situations, where there was maybe a little more opportunity to defend, it still ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, the law can sometimes be pretty harsh that way, and maybe it has to be that way. Who can ever sort out or get to the full truth of a matter, when it's he said, she said, and it's pretty hard to do that. So a lot of times I think they have to have some hard lines, and they just let the chips kind of fall, wherever they may. I had another one, and this one was really embarrassing. This was probably the most embarrassing one to me. I think I've mentioned in here, I'm in public accounting. I serve clients, and here I'm going to put on my, yeah, will that get close enough? Um, Maybe I'll tweak it just a little bit, turn a different angle. Here we go. Try to do some back and forth here. But I'm in public accounting. I'm out meeting with customers, from time to time, and we do various services sometimes on site with a client, like audits that they've asked us to do for various things, and so I was out at a particular client one time. Again, this happened kind of up near Portland somewhere on one of the roadways up there, and the client and I had to travel somewhere. I think we were going to do what we call observe inventory, take an inventory count at one of their other locations. So they were leading the way. They took off, and I was following them in traffic. And this wasn't speeding or anything. Um, and all of a sudden, traffic just slowed to a crawl. I don't remember what time of day it was. It could be there was a wreck up ahead. I just don't remember those details. What I do remember is we were just crawling along, and behind me just so happened to be another motorcycle cop. And it's like, well, nobody, I don't think any of us rest easy when we have a police officer behind us in traffic. You just wonder what he's thinking, he or she, what they may do back there. But I figured, hey, we're stuck in traffic. He's stuck here too. I'm not speeding. What could possibly go wrong? Well, being that we weren't moving very fast, gave him plenty of time to look at my license plate. And, I had a full license and everything, but I had done or not done something rather that I should have done, and he nailed me for it. Now, in the state of Oregon, and maybe it's this way in other states, and maybe it's this way in other countries, we all have the license plate on our car, and it has the numbers that identify us or whatever. Everybody has that. But there's these little stickers that we put on there for when we do our license renewal. We got to do that every couple years, and there's a new sticker we put on there that's colored a certain way that tells anybody that looks at it whether or not we are up to date. And like I say, it's every few years, and there's color coding so someone could tell at a glance, this person, oh, that's last year's color. They're obviously not registered anymore, possibly aren't registered. Well, so you pay these fees, it comes in the mail, you send in the check, they give you the stickers, and you put them on your car, and that's kind of how you keep up with the system. Well, the problem was I'd been a little bit lazy. This came in the mail, I paid my fee, I did all that, and I just hadn't gotten around to taking the stickers and actually putting them on the license plate. In the car that I had at the time, it was kind of a pain in the neck to do that, because I had to unscrew the thing partially. There was kind of some little casing that sat over the top of the license plate to where I could put the square of the adhesive, to put on the new sticker. I just hadn't done it, but I had paid it. So this dude back there, he's sitting there in traffic, has nothing else better to do. He notices my sticker is off, so he pulls me over in this. I mean, it had to have been the slowest police chase in history, because, we were basically stopped. It still was moving a little bit, so I had to kind of get over to the side. so he could give me a spiel. He even, and this is a maddening part, this is why I say the law, it is what it is, it draws lines. He looked me up in the system, and he knew that I had paid for my license. I just hadn't put the doggone sticker, on the license plate. But he gave me a ticket anyways, and and it was in a different county, so I had to just handle it by mail, which was kind of a pain. If you go there in person, maybe the story would be different. I explained what had happened. I explained I'd already paid my fee. I just hadn't got the sticker on the car, but it was to no avail. They sent me a bill and I had to pay it, a fine because I didn't have it on there. So the lesson to me was, as soon as you get those stickers, you get off your rear and you go put it on your car, so they have no excuse. And some of it, but I think I can't prove it, but whenever something like that goes through the court system, you know, if they show mercy, if you will, clemency, and they let it go, there is nothing that covers the cost for the judge, nothing that covers the cost of the police officer or all the other people that have to handle the paperwork of the ticket. So sometimes I wonder if, and they may show some mercy, they may whack some of the fee down, but at a certain level, they probably need to get payment just to keep the system funded. I know a lot of it's funded by our taxes, but I do sometimes wonder about that. But I think the worst part for me with that one is it happened right in front of a client, and the profession that I'm in, being a certified public accountant, we are supposed to follow the law, be upstanding citizens. I gotta represent on my license every time I renew it that I'm not a felon, that I've filed all my taxes, that I've done all these things, and I have to attest to that. And someone could always audit me and check it out, see if it's different. And so I am supposed to be following the law. And when in front of a client, one of our customers, and this was a good client to boot, they see that we're stopped by a cop, and then later, of course, they were very curious, well, why did they stop you? They know good and well that the traffic wasn't moving very fast. So the only reason that maybe they would stop someone is, well, maybe there was a reason. Maybe they looked up your license and, you're engaging in bad activity, and, just one of those embarrassments that happened in front of a client. But we kept the client anyhow. They kind of brushed it off and let it go. Probably because, like I say, everybody knows that feeling, and everybody knows too that there are times when, it's not that big a deal, and it's just your turn, I guess. Oh my goodness, look at that, a whole half hour's gone by. I think I'm going to call the video here. I got a couple more police stories too, but I can save that for another day. Thank anyone who's suffered through this and listened. Hope you have a great day, whatever you're doing. Bye bye for now, and I'll see you next time.